Test, 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 test. Mine's not.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to City Council regular session of August 8th. I call it to order at 6:30 p.m. Roll call. City Recorder.
Councilor Shepard,
Present.
Councilor Page,
Present.
Councilor Luke,
Present.
Councilor Tesdale,
Here.
Councilor Smith,
Present.
Councilor Nielsen,
Present.
Mayor Trett.
Present. And if we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Record, we do have an updated agenda item that we agreed to discuss this month. We did redo the agenda with 48 hours notice, which meets guidelines. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Councilor Page moves to approve the agenda. Second?
Second.
Councilor Luke. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. Committee reports. Hearing none. Public comment. This is a time set aside for comments from the public on matters not on the agenda. Commenters are limited to 3 minutes. Times may not be yielded. Questions from the council or staff to commentators shall not be counted against the allotted 3 minutes. Again, this is for the items not on the agenda. Is there anyone who would like to address council? Okay, on something other than, okay, please give your name and address.
Can you hear me? My name's Tina Russell. I have property up at 135 Tumble Street, Detroit, Oregon. And Mr. Chen, I'm here to file a formal complaint against Michelle Tesdale, council member for the City Council of Detroit, for accusing my family and myself of threatening her and her children on social media. This accusation is false, and at no time did I ever, or any of my family members, ever post anything about anyone in her family. Saturday night, she walked onto my property unauthorized and started accusing me of threatening her children. I asked her to show me, and the rest just escalated out of control from there. I was not nice. This is the second time that she's accused me of threatening her family. This is unacceptable behavior coming from a council member. A police report was filed. I could have had press charges against her and her husband, Don Tesdale, for menacing, trespassing, and assault. The assault came from Don grabbing myself and my daughter. There were several witnesses around, and there's some little kids that are pretty upset that didn't sleep that night. You've removed a planning commissioner for less. What Ms. Tisdale did on Saturday is harassment, unprofessional conduct, and slanderous to my character. When you sit on a governing body, your standards should be held at a higher, more professional. Please consider removing her. And I want to put in this formal complaint. And all
We're not doing that tonight.
I have all the messages printed out for you and the message that she claims I was threatening her children from last year and on Saturday.
Okay. So, staff, please. Anyone else wish to address council on items not on the agenda? I'm sorry? The building code, yes. The building code is yes. Thank you. Hearing none, we'll move. move on. Sure. What is, without really going into it right now, what does it have to do with? Okay, that'll be part of the other one. Okay, thank you. Oh, no, that's different. Yeah. Yes, please do. Thank you. No, that's-
My name is Sandra Kinney Loader. I'm at 80 Tumble North. My husband. I just wanted to address that we had the opportunity to see city planning design ideas for Detroit for the next 20 years. And they did have some interesting design plans, but what is the plan for Detroit in the next 1 to 2 years? That's my concern. Are we going to be improving the roads that are gravel? Are we going to be replacing the street signs? Are we going to be maybe, I'm all really concerned about the infrastructure that we have right here that needs to be corrected, not. So that's just something I appreciate their vision, but I know that we're paying a lot of money for this. And I'm really concerned about what we're doing in the city right now to draw in passerbys. Perhaps, some kind of a restaurant or, I don't know, brew pub, something to get people to stop in Detroit. And as we all know right now, the lake is being dropped quickly and everyone has to pull out their boats by way earlier than anticipated. And that is a big draw for this city. And suddenly now, what are we doing to draw people into this town right now? I appreciate the city planning, but we really need to look at what we need in the next 1 or 2 years.
Is there a plan for
We're working on a lot of those subjects right now.
Because everything they demonstrated was for
Yeah.
way in the future.
No, it's not.
every city?
We appreciate that, but
No. And just be advised, we are working on
we
several of
need some
those.
paving and such things, right?
Well, that's money that. we're not
Well,
coming up with.
we're paying a city planner,
A
aren't we?
lot of the issues you discussed.
How much are we paying a city planner?
Hmm?
How much are we paying that city planner?
It was a grant,
I'm curious, it was a grant?
yes.
Well, that is good.
It was a grant from the Oregon State Lottery as well, so.
Okay, well, that's good to hear, because that was a little concerning too. But I really would like to see what the city wants to do, or plans to do, in the really close future, so that we can
Well,
make this a city, people are gonna stop.
I think if you watch, not be here, don't have to be here every time, but watch online, you'll see a lot of those updates are being given by counselors on business and everything like that, so.
They would have had probably a lot better
Mr. Mayor,
attendance if they saw something sooner.
Counselor Nielsen?
I'm sorry.
I think your questions are spot on, and I appreciate them. And there are a variety of counselors with commission responsibilities to look at help through the use of consultants to design systems for our future, including water, which you'll hear about tonight. You've heard about it ad nauseum in the
I've spoken
past.
about it.
We're working on sewer systems, both Mill City, Gates, Detroit, Idana. That's ongoing. It's very intense at this point. We have $5 million to look at design and some temporary systems for the business district, as well as residential help through grants. So there are a lot of activities. We report on those every month here at the council meeting. And beyond that, you can look at the North St. Anne Sewer Authority website as
I
well as
have.
the city website.
It looks
And
like it's about 5 years out,
I'm sorry?
the sewer. It looks to be about 2027 is
Well,
what I'm.
yeah, it's about 5 years out. We
Do you
don't
know
know
that
for
we've-
sure because there's a lot of testing and design that has to happen between here and Idana up on McCoy Creek. And that's not
My families have
something that
property
can
here for
occur
45
overnight.
years. They've been telling us about this sewer for a long time.
Well-
So I really want to see some action.
Well, you're correct, and I appreciate that. I'm sorry for the discussion, but it's important. We didn't have the money before last year. And through a variety of sources, the county, the state, and so on, we got $50 million. $5 million of which was dedicated towards Detroit. So all of those systems are at play currently. There are a ton of people working on it diligently, and we all have the same concerns you do. My personal opinion is there's nothing more permanent than a temporary solution, and I want to avoid that.
Can I ask one more question then? So all of us are putting in, $25,000 septic systems.
I know.
Are we going to be forced to go onto the sewer?
That's a great question, and I don't have the answer for it now,
Well,
but
that's a big question.
but it's in discussion.
That's a big question. I hope that you guys can address that soon.
I can tell you that Marion County had grants for that. With,
Yes?
with
Do they
knowing-
still?
They do, and with knowing that, it does state in there that if you get a grant from Marion County, when sewer is available, you will hook up to it. So it's a yes and a no, I guess.
Yeah, and do we know what the cost will be to hook up to it?
No.
No, we have no idea what Marion County is going to charge. Okay, thank you for that information.
Near future, we have a large paving project that might start as early as next week on the East Forest Avenue with the walkway. So that's in the immediate future.
What about up on the hill?
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As well as, and I will address this as we talk about the water system, but we will have a new state-of-the-art water system, water plant when that is completed as well, which is under construction as we speak. So, but I'll address that later.
Okay, anyone else? Moving along, continuation of public hearing. This is the time set aside for the continuation of the July 11th, 2023 hearing on LA 22-01, the building code. Commenters are limited to 3 minutes. Time may not be yielded. Questions from the council or staff to commentators shall not be counted against the time. Council and staff are asked not to ask questions until the commentators' 3 minutes have expired. We will alternate commentators between those supporting adoption and those opposing adoption of LA 2201, the building code. At the end of each commentator's testimony, one other thing we'd like to throw in here is this is a continuation of the hearing last month. So if you testified last month, your comments are in the record. We would ask that you only address council if you have another point to make. At the end of each commentator's testimony, there should be at this meeting no action supporting or detracting from the commentator's belief. I now reconvene the hearing on LA 2221, the building code, at 6:43 p.m. So we will begin with so we will start with Don Tesdale. When you start, please give your name and Detroit address, please.
I've got a prepared statement. It's the same statement that's in everybody's packet. I'm just going to read it out loud for anybody that hasn't. Yeah, so Don Tesdall, 205 Kenny, here in Detroit. And I've got a statement that I submitted to the city. So it's in that packet. I'm going to read it out loud for anybody that hasn't had a chance to go through the packet. Regarding support for the amendment to the code. There has been significant property turnover these last 3 years. Along with the increase in this property turnover, we've seen a large increase in recreational vehicle use within the city, both from pre-fire and post-fire property owners. Regarding the use of RVs, the intention and behavior of most property owners has been noble, seeking to create a personal recreational space and bond with loved ones. However, there are others who have engaged in or do plan to engage in the renting of their RV spaces. Additionally, there are those who are placing more RVs on their property than what would typically be allowed within city limits. The resulting condition being our neighborhoods have transformed into an ad hoc campground, altering the very essence of what defines our city. The sheer number of RVs and the additional persons that come with them puts a strain on our city resources, significantly altering the livability of our neighborhoods. What were once single-family homes with 1 or 2 occupants has become group campsites, accommodating many times over what we had before the fire. We cannot ignore the ripple effect caused by this excessive influx of recreational vehicles. Our city resources are stretched thin as it is. Our infrastructure is strained. The unique identity of our neighborhoods is at risk of being overshadowed by an overwhelming number of temporary lodgings. Our once serene, peaceful streets now bear the brunt of increased traffic, leading to further street erosion, and our water plant struggles to accommodate sudden spikes in water usage. These increases place burdens on our residents, city workers, and staff without any additional income to the city to offset these associated costs. It is worth noting that our city stands alone in permitting RV camping within a residential neighborhood in our state. In any other context, an RV serving as a residence would be deemed a nuisance and its occupants considered homeless. We must not allow the residents to bear the burden of situations that defy established land use regulations and alter the character of our neighborhoods. Yet a small fraction of individuals are capitalizing on our location, transforming it into an overcrowded and less appealing destination. This exploitation for personal gain runs counter to the spirit of community that we're attempting to rebuild. We do aspire to rebuild our city to its pre-fire beauty and charm, where we once enjoyed tree-lined streets with established landscapes. We must respect the rule of law and adopt an RV ordinance that encourages responsible rebuilding and growth while preserving the unique character and beauty of our city.
Mr. Tesdale, I'm sorry, that's 3 minutes.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tina Russell.
Since you already have my testimony from the last time, I just have a couple things to say. Tina Russell, 135 Tumble Street. We want our signs back. We know that the city workers have taken them down, and we would like them back. They cost a lot of money. We can put them somewhere else, but we would appreciate it if you gave them back to us. The other thing is homeowners here really better start paying attention to what's happening in the actual town. You know, how much chaos this has caused, how many people are fighting and not liking each other and pointing fingers at each other here. It's terrible. I've never seen something so bad going on in a little tiny town. I think that we need to focus a little bit more on the downtown infrastructure. Start trying to take care of that stuff instead of worrying about RVs all the time. It's gonna change. I put a home in. Everybody's gonna do it sooner or later. It might not be the time for people to do it right now. Everybody needs to understand that. So I just think that we all need to come to a resolution on this. I sent in 2 emails to you guys and a proposal for RVs and how we could make things better here. Never was there a meeting between all of us. We could have came to a resolution before this got so out of control. People don't even talk to each other. You know, people are feeling like this is just a huge mess, and it is. It's a huge mess. We need it resolved, and we need to come to consensus all together. That's all I have.
Thank you. We're not doing that tonight. We will ask people to leave. That is an advice of people who know this stuff better than I do. Matt Lofton.
I'm Matt Lofton. We live up here full-time, me and my family, on 205 Front Street. We are not against RVs by any means. We think everybody has the right to do what they want with their property, but it's reached a point where it's excessive. We get a lot of people that are renting property out to RVers, people allowing more than what's necessary on their property as far as RVs. And I think while we all see it, what it's doing is bringing a different kind of person to Detroit. We're getting people that come here that have no ties to Detroit. They're only here to camp for the weekend, enjoy themselves, have a good time, which I don't have a problem with. The problem we do have, like Don mentioned, is the excessive vehicles on the street. We go for family walks almost nightly, and we pick up garbage, beer cans. Garbage is thrown all over the side of the road. So I think it'd be in the city's best interest to limit the amount of RVs, to encourage rebuilding, because structures will bring more revenue to the city to make improvements such as downtown, the streets, the water system, things like that. That is all I have.
Thank you. Mike Osborne.
Hello. My name is Mike Osborne. I'm at 230 Detroit Avenue South. My family's had property here for 30 years. I'm not a person who likes to get involved in things, but after seeing the last city council meeting, I thought I ought to bring this up. I try to avoid drama like the plague, but I feel compelled to address the RV issue with the city council. After all that everyone has lost and all that people are still going through after the horrific fire, I don't understand the rush to make this decision. Why does it seem like the city council wants to force this issue? That's how it feels to me and a lot of people that I know here. The council is supposed to make decisions based on the best interests of this city, and I just don't see how you can sit in front of this community and say that you are doing that. This subject is very serious, and as you can see, is tearing our community apart. Why do you have to decide this now without more meetings in community and discussing more openly and trying to reach compromise? How truly blessed many of us have been to be able to rebuild. Or maybe you are one of the lucky ones that didn't lose everything. Or you are new to this community and don't have any idea what a treasure it was before the fire. Some people weren't able to rebuild but they want to continue enjoying this amazing place with their family and friends. It seems to me like people are being very selfish and uncaring, and that's not the community we have known or grown around. The world we live in today is filled with so many decisions being made that we are forced on all of us. And now, here we are in this awesome little town that everybody has grown to love. This is and has always been a slice of heaven, surrounded by amazing, thoughtful neighbors that helped each other out before and after the fire. That has cheered the other on as we have struggled to rebuild our lives here. Now we have everybody at each other's throats. I believe you have created an air of discontent and distrust in this wonderful place. I hope you can rein in your personal feelings and really ask yourself, each and every one of you, is this really needed now? Do I really want this to be the cause of an awesome community tearing at each other? Please stop and think about what is truly best for our community. I feel it isn't voting at this time before proper talks can be had and reasonable compromises can be made. To add to this, Lisa Austin was the writer of this with a little changes in it, and I feel that everybody in here is with me on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Rachel, no, no, please. Rachel Lofton, please.
I'm Rachel Lofton, and I have a house at 205 Front Street, and I'm here not because of personal gain. I'm here because I felt like there's a lot of discontentment and a lot of bullying, unfortunately, and I feel like in the past several years there's been so much separation and frustrations enough, and I'd like to just address our feelings on behalf of what's going on with RVs. We have a home, and we're very grateful for it, and we have a family, and to us it's very important to take pride in the city and to enjoy the area without having so much wear and tear on things. Unfortunately, I have no problems whatsoever with recreational vehicles or people using them as they rebuild or whatever they want to do with that. However, I feel like there's been such a large turnover. It's not people that live here that are using the property. People are renting out the space to 4 and 5 other big groups. There's been karaoke going on at all hours of the night. There's been people yelling and hollering, racing around the streets in ATVs and whatnot. I don't feel safe with my children walking the streets in the evenings because people are being reckless. I don't feel like that's the people that live here or own the properties. I feel like it's people that are being here short term, that don't have a respect or pride in the city that the people that live here do. And like I said, I know there's a lot of people that have very strong opinions and are concerned about being kicked out or whatever that may be. That isn't the feeling that we have. What I have a strong feeling of is I'd like to be able to have a bond with the community. I'd like us to work together to come up with a compromise that meets those needs without people renting out their property to 4 and 5 groups of other people that don't have those ties. So, as I said, I have a family that I'd like to be able to enjoy the city with without being in fear of ATVs knocking us over or whatever it may be, and I just feel like it brings a different dynamic when there's people here just for a couple days. So that's my thoughts on it. And again, no bad feelings with anyone that's living in an RV.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lisa Austin.
Hello, my name is Lisa Austin. I'm at 240 Detroit Avenue South. I'd just like to start off by saying I understand what she said about, she thinks the outside people. I have personally chased down 2 people driving like idiots on ATVs that were from this community, but new to this community, and told them they better knock it off and slow down, and I've never seen them do it again. So that's nice, because the police aren't going to show up to do anything anytime soon. So if we don't have good neighbors to be like, listen, chill out. And people have responded, so sometimes you just got to talk to people. I'd like to start by saying, and I'm sure most people here appreciate you being on the city council, and I'm sure you've made a lot of decisions for this community that were aimed at improving and helping it. If you decide to vote for the changes on the RV code, and again, mainly people here will not feel you are making a decision based on what is best for this community. My brother always says, in business you can do 100 good things for someone, but you mess up once and that's all they want to remember. Don't make this the one mess up that everybody remembers. When we bought our little cabin, it had a fence that was falling down and needed replaced. We started to dismantle, and I said, hey, wait a minute, we don't even know if this little fence is ours. We better find out from our neighbor. So we tracked it down, found out who our neighbor was, talked to him, and he's like, oh, no problem. Go ahead and replace it with what you want and tell me what my part is. We've always been good neighbors to people, and that's what we need to do in this community, and for you to be good neighbors to us in this community. It's sad that we have to meet so many of our neighbors in this manner. I won't be able to just walk by them now, peaceful, non-informed bliss, because the council has chosen not to meet and discuss this issue with the community. It has caused a huge divide. It's very, very sad, and I personally can't stand it because I love to just walk around and be happy, and now it's very uncomfortable. It's been said that this council has accomplished great things for our city and that the people of our community have had little to no interest in attending meetings or contributing. Well, I guarantee you we'll have a lot more attention here after what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill Scheller. I hope I said that right. Mr. Scheller, is that it? S-C-H-E-L-E-R? Okay, thank you. Yeah, we're working on that too.
I'm Bill Sheeler. I'm a owner for 34 years on 2nd Street here in Detroit. Ever since we came to Detroit, starting at a campground, the town has deteriorated because of economic reasons, federal reasons, and then the fire finished it off. My understanding on the enforcement and regulations is we're trying to get grant money, federal money, to help put the town back together. There's certain codes that you have to meet to get those grants. I don't have any problem with the RVs one way or the other, except that they're enforced, and it takes somebody to enforce those rules, which is a wage. So whatever it costs to have an enforcer, whether it's the golf carts, the RVs, or vacant properties, there should be enough fees to pay that enforcer, because the city of Detroit doesn't have the money to do that. I don't know if Marion County provides that, but that's my concern, the safety of the community. Like I said, I've been here 34 years, and I don't feel this anger from either side, so I'm missing that part of it. But I appreciate you guys listening, trying to make a decision on it, moving forward. But it's going to be tough for this town to do anything if we don't stay within codes that are required to get grants, money to help us do it. And that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Debbie Love Wagner.
Hello, Mayor Trett and Council. My name is Debbie Love Wagner, 250 Scott Avenue. I've been coming to Detroit almost my entire life. I have family that has property here in Detroit, and I spend my summers in a family-owned RV. I am highly against the proposed restrictions you are considering. I'm speaking to you all as a fellow public servant. I have spent 38 years as a public servant, and during my tenure, I have always listened to my constituents. I feel that whether you are serving at the city, county, state, or federal level, you must consider the voices of those you serve. I encourage you all to take the information that has been presented to you into consideration before making your final decision. Over the last few months, I have witnessed this town become divided, and I just don't believe that is the future of Detroit. This subject has brought a lot of division amongst friends, and it needs to stop so that we can get back to the camaraderie we once shared. Thank you.
Thank you. Sandra King. Yeah, thank you. Sorry about that.
Again, Sandra Kenny Loader, 80 Tumble. Again, I said I've had property here for 45 years. We are in the process of trying to rebuild. I share the property with my sister. And I do have a question. I don't know if you can answer it right now, because you can't, I'm not sure how this works. Is it my understanding, I've been told, that you can have 2 RVs on your property from April until October 31st for the summer? Is that correct? Is that in perpetuity, or is that challenged here
That's
as
what
well?
we're looking, that's what this code will have
Well,
to
I mean,
decide.
but that's always been the, before the fire, et cetera, that was the, no one can answer that. Okay, well, on that note, the one thing I have heard, this is just what I've heard, that one of the reasons that there's a challenge here is because of this, the too many RVs on a property is against state ordinance. And I know that so are ATVs and golf carts. So I'm not against ATVs and golf carts. I actually think they're great. But you guys did make a ruling to allow ATVs and golf carts going against state ordinance in this city. So you are not forced by a state ordinance to change this. You have the option as a city to do what you choose or what is in the best concern of the constituents of this city. So I just want to bring that to your attention. You've already overridden a state statute. So I don't see that as a good excuse or a good reason to use against. Anyway, I hope I made very clear. Thank you.
Mike Brunville. Michael Brunville.
Michael Brunel. I'm a full-time resident at 150 North Butte. I'm kind of split on this. One side of it is we had to live in our motorhome for 2.5 years before our home just got done. Okay, during that time, there were times we had family and friends come up for a weekend. Now, had that ordinance been in effect, we wouldn't have been able to allow them to stay with us. I'm not saying I'm for it or against it. What I do think should happen is there should be some kind of leeway for businesses. I'll tell you why. Mountain High Grocery, we need about 20 employees during the summer to staff and to serve the community and the tourists. We can't get them. There is no pool to draw from here in Detroit. It's just not there. We have had numerous employees come up that we've hired from the Salem area, the Almsville area, and they work for 1 or 2 days and they're done. They don't want to make that drive up here and back every day. The town isn't going to grow unless we work with the community. The businesses aren't going to grow if there's nowhere for them to stay. They used to come up here when we had 3 motels. They'd come up for the summer. We'd get college students, we'd get kids just out of high school that come up and work for a summer. They're not here. They don't want to come up. They used to stay up here, okay? Now, I think what should happen is there should be an allotment for business owners to put whatever they need on their property for housing, or we're never going to grow. And one of the things that scares me the most is Mountain High. If we can't get the employees, why keep the store? And the only way we can get the employees is if we provide housing for them so they can stay up here during the summer. Same thing with the motel. There's 4 rooms at the motel. That's it. Those are for tourists, not for people working up here. Okay? We need another 5 employees for just what we have there now that we can't get. Families are having to come up here and just come up every day. It's not right to the businesses. And if you want to grow, you need to work with them and you need to allow them to hire employees and house them while they're working. Another thing, I don't know if this is off subject or not, but you're talking about RVs on properties. Well, I want to bring up something I'm dead against. And all these people that are coming up and building these $1 million homes, having no intention to live in them, yet they're doing it for a business. They turn around and rent it out. I got a house next to me that's going to be done within the next 30 days. My tax assessor came by today. I said, how big is that house? She said 5,000 square feet. I said, what's it listed as? 2 bedroom, 2 bath. I said, how many actual rooms are in there that could be used for bedrooms? 7.
Yeah, Michael, I'm sorry, that's your 3 minutes. So.
Pardon me?
That's your 3 minutes, though. Time's up. Okay, thank you very much. Deborah Bowman.
Deborah Bowman, 195 Mackey Lane, Detroit, and we own the 4 adjoining lots. and we've lived here permanently, year-round, for over 45 years. The RV situation seems to be reminiscent of the Rosnicki's takeover of Antelope. The only difference is the shirt colors. I've talked with over 50 people this last month, and the consensus is that they want limited RVs and enforcement against excessive abuses. Many part-timers and permanent year-rounders have been here for up to 8 decades, and their ancestors before them, volunteering, working, and contributing to the community. We've all been here through the earthquakes, floods, deep snows, and now the fire. This isn't our first rodeo. We've raised our children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren here. We're the ones who have persisted out of the love of Detroit and of all of our neighbors with whom we've shared so much. We are the survivors, the true and real heart and soul of Detroit. We're a welcoming bunch. We just ask that everyone work together in rebuilding. This has not always been a recreation town. It's been home for more people than you can imagine, and still is. We're rebuilding. It's going to take more decades, but we're here for the long haul. As counselors, it's your responsibility to pass the rules and regulations for the majority of the people, not a small fraction of summer weekenders with their own personal agendas. All towns and cities have RV regulations. Thank you.
Thank you. Tad Humphreys.
Tad Humphreys, 215 Hill Street. I purchased my property in 2006, and we bought it for recreational, for putting RVs on. And up until the last couple of years, I've had 3 RVs on my property. And as far as I know, I've never had any complaints from my neighbors around me. And you know, if I'm going to be limited to 1 RV, it's going to be kind of heartbreaking, for the simple fact that I have a couple boys that have been almost raised up here, you know, in the summer. I've been coming here since 1978 when I graduated from high school, boating and whatnot, and finally made the move to buy the property. So I really hope that you guys, you know, really think this over and study what you're going to be doing here. So I appreciate the time, and thank you.
Thank you. Christine Rasmussen.
Hi. Christine Rasmussen, 430 Santiam Avenue. I am here basically because I got a letter in mail after last month's meeting with a book to fill out to have our RVs that we've had here, which we've had here forever. As long as we've owned the property, we've had 4 RVs. We've followed all the rules. And now the city is sending out stuff that is ridiculous. I think it's just a jab at all of us, and somebody should be taking responsibility for this. Crazy. Copies of zoning maps? What? You're requesting that all of the maps that we've site plans are to scale? Well, who do you think's going to do that? You've already put us under so much pressure following all the rules, and now you want to change all the rules. Hire a code enforcer. Simple. They can work on the weekend, problem solved. That's all.
Thank you. Tyler Stone. And Mr. Stone, is the green light on?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
Tyler Stone, 100 and 150 Scott. Thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to come here and talk before you guys today. So I ask that you look at this code enforcement very carefully, or the change of ordinance. For the most part, this group here tonight is in compliance of everything that we need to do. There's very few of us that are really bending the rules, renting out our properties. You know as well as I do that we don't throw more litter than the homeowner. We're not doing karaoke louder than the other homeowners. That's not true. We're good people. Just because we're an RV, maybe we're an RV now, maybe eventually we won't be in an RV. That's our goal. To be forced to have to change to that on not our terms economically isn't fair. So we purchased our properties with the belief that we would be able to use them in the manner that we're using them. It's just my brother and his wife and our families. My kid's favorite thing to do is to come up here and enjoy this time. Please don't take that opportunity from us to have what we have going on up here. It's a great time. This issue going on is disappointing to me. I love coming up here, and it's starting to make it so I don't want to come up here anymore. I don't like to see the bickering in the streets or at the parks at events. This is embarrassing. We need to set an example for our kids that we're going to make this place right. All of Oregon's watching what happened to Detroit when it burned down. Well, we were together. We worked together. Now this stupid issue is dividing us and making us argue and fight with each other. Let's put that aside and let's figure out a way to make the lake full through Labor Day so that there's a reason to come up here. Let's figure out how to make the downtown viable so businesses want to come here. It's the only way to make this city thrive is to keep people coming up here, not limit who can come up here and be that picky about how each of us lives our lives. Definitely, if there's somebody out of line, let's take care of it, homes or in an RV, either one. That's possible. But please, let's band together and let's make this place what it can be. It's a great community. Please help us with that, okay? Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Tina Emery.
Tina Emery, 270 Front Street. I'd like to address a few things weighing heavy on my mind since I last spoke in front of you. City Council, you've spoke of people who are in favor of the RV ordinance change being too scared to speak up or to just be here. They're afraid to be present. You spoke of it as if to advocate for them in their absence. Isn't it the responsibility of the board to advocate for the community as a whole? I firsthand understand that getting involved is scary. I hate it. I hate controversy, I hate the tension, and I hate this divide. Yet I'm here speaking because it's important to me, not only for myself, but for the others so affected by this, some of whom I've never even met. I understand you're hearing their concerns, but I question whether you're hearing ours, even though we're willing to step outside of our comfort zone to be seen and heard. You say if you have a concern, show up, so here we are. I don't know of a single person involved that's advocating for the RVs that has enjoyed any of this. People are sad, distraught, and hurt. How sad our council did not choose to meet to come to some kind of middle ground, and just to clarify, at that time, no attorney said that we couldn't meet. As a matter of fact, it was encouraged. To know that so many have concerns and how those concerns fall on deaf ears is scary to say the least. We are not a small fraction. Thankfully, it's been proven that this change does not have to happen. All the excuses given are not factual. That's been a very important thing for me to know through this process. This change is purely for no other reason than that of a few individual people's idea of an improved cosmetic purpose. The fact that this change harming the city's potential to increase population during its busiest economic months is less concerning to you than the visual objective that you are trying to achieve. It's a huge red flag. I fear that several of you, out of stubbornness, are closing your mind to entertaining this truth. This change is premature. I've heard many people say that they're waiting to rebuild to see if the city comes back. They're waiting and watching. Are we proud of what they're seeing so far? Is it inspiring anybody? No. Build the city first, then surprisingly enough, most of this change you seek will follow. One thing to remember, the population increases during the summer months, period. That's a fact for stick-built homes as well. To blame the added chaos in this town in the summer on RV owners isn't fair. I love Detroit. This town has so much more to be focusing on right now than this RV situation. The timing is all off on this one. Please open your minds and hearts to the obvious fact.
Thank you. David Moberg.
David Moberg. I live at, have an RV on 210 Center Street. I just really want to reiterate what Tina just got done saying in terms of what this lot that we own has meant to us. For most of my life, I've been coming to Detroit during the summers to recreate. Without the dam, there would be no Detroit. Without the dam, there would be no purpose in a lot of people's lives. We bought our property, fortunate enough, in 2018 before the fire. We spent many summers on properties owned by friends for the purpose of recreation. We have children, we have grandchildren, and our children have trailers. I don't want to choose which child gets to put their trailer on our lot. We don't have the resources to build. We bought our property with the purpose to use the RV, to use our children's RVs, and watch our grandchildren grow up. I don't want them excluded. Again, this town is to recreate. And for the short 3 months that we're here, and only Thursdays through Sundays, sometimes Mondays, we have the best enjoyment, the best time that families share. And I just don't want that to be taken away. We don't have the resources to build, plain and simple. We will not build. We just can't afford to build. We were fortunate enough to buy. We followed all the ordinances. We followed all the procedures to put the power, the water, the driveway, and the landscaping needed to continue to enjoy Detroit. So I just ask that with an open mind that the city council takes a look at this with an open mind and listen to the majority of the people. You represent the majority of the people. That's what elected officials do. And please listen. Thank you.
Thank you. Marla Moberg.
Marla Moberg, 210 Center Street. I'm here to speak to our opposition to the proposed changes in the development code for RVs. There are much better options than the proposed RV code changes that the council should be willing to discuss and consider with open minds. We urge you to adopt development codes that support existing families and property owners who've already spent time and thousands of dollars to create their family retreats in this beautiful recreational town. After spending more than 20 summers in Detroit, bringing our RV to campgrounds, RV parks, and finally onto the property of our dear friends, we knew we had to permanently find our own place. Most of our friends have already done exactly that in the past decade. Our opportunity finally came along and we purchased our property in 2018. We, of course, plan to continue to bring our RVs to our new property and create mountains of memories with our loved ones and our friends. Our 2 adult children also want to continue those traditions of boating and camping in the summers. After hard work, we've created our family's summer retreat. Our dream has finally come true. Our children's dreams have finally come true. But wait, with the proposed change in the RV codes, which limits the number of RVs, one child is not going to be allowed to bring an RV and stay with us. We ask you, which child? Which child doesn't get to come? I don't understand. This is the same scenario that holds true for so many other families here. How can you, in good conscience, suddenly take away our future from us, our children and grandchildren, by unnecessarily limiting the use of our property? We've also always planned to pass these camping traditions along to future generations. We have plenty of space in our property. We have all the proper setbacks, follow the standards, and have been in place since we purchased our property. Are there issues that are posing a problem in the community? If there are isolated problems, let's not punish the innocent. Those issues should be resolved with proper code enforcement. As counselors, we hope you put yourself in other people's shoes and see from their perspective how you will be unnecessarily taking the dreams away from our generations of families that have already owned property here for years and years. Please don't take away our dreams and future memories, but continue with the code that was in place when we purchased our property by allowing 3 or 4 RVs if conditions of the property permits. This is our happy place, just as it's your happy place. Let's
Ms.
work
Moberg,
together to
Ms.
keep
Moberg,
it a happy
that's your
place
time.
forever.
Thank you. And I'm not sure if I can read the last name. Jesse, is it Juarez? Thank you.
Mayor Trett, council members. My name is Jesse Juarez, 130 Scott Avenue. I'm retired law enforcement, 26 years. I'm a 10-year Navy vet. Now I'm working on a reforestation project and growing Christmas trees. I've worked and lived around many different government agencies in my lifetime. I've always been an advocate of transparency and will always be opposed to the mantra that people in positions of power can perceivably and allegedly know what's best for the people of a community. There's a lot of people here that are trying to tell you what they feel is best. The RV issue in front of the Detroit City Council is a perfect example of a group of council members who appear, I say appear, to refuse to listen to the wants of the majority of the community who live and work in this town. There is support on the council for a compromised RV issue, but those who have shown to be supportive of this issue appear to have been shut down. When a community speaks or tries to speak and those in power play with words like, "We value your input," or "Your voice and opinions really matter," but the decisions have already been made, it's just plain wrong. I spend a lot of time in Detroit now, and I fully support what the majority of this community wants in regard to the RV issue. The majority of the community of Detroit came up with a compromised plan that would address issues of noise complaints, number of RVs placed on a lot based on lot size, and would still allow those with RVs or visiting family members or friends with RVs to maintain a lifestyle that they've grown accustomed to. The community's compromised efforts appear to have fallen on deaf ears, and any support for those compromised efforts have been shut down by a majority of this council. There have been many signs of support of compromised issues with RVs that have been placed around the city. A lot of those signs have been removed. In one instance, a city employee was asked to go to a private business and have the sign removed. Is that right? I don't think it is. I'm here to show support for the compromise changes that the property and RV owners have come up with that could be beneficial for those who oppose RVs and sets guidelines for those who wish to continue maintaining their respective lifestyles with RVs and their visiting families and friends who have RVs. One thing that has been said many times here tonight, if the issue is people that are out of hand, racing ATVs down the streets, parties that go through all hours of the night, why hasn't there been a major effort on code enforcement or having someone hired to do code enforcement? If that's the main issue, that would solve a lot of things for many people.
And
Thank
that's-
you for my, thank you for.
Thank you. Marla Gatchett. Marla Gatchett? Okay, thank you. Mike Gatchett? Okay, that's who I have on my list.
My name is Dean O'Donnell, and I live at 260 Santiam Avenue. As a full-time resident and fire survivor, I would like to thank the city of Detroit for allowing the survivors of this tragedy to use travel trailers as transitional housing as we went through the tedious steps of rebuilding our home, which I'm happy to say our home was completed late May of 2023. Our family lost 4 out of 6 structures in the fires of 2020. One was our permanent home for over 20 years. As owners of Mountain High Grocery, the only store that survived, we worked for 9 months to open the store back to the public. We made sure that our employees received all the benefits that were available to them. Every employee received a paycheck for 6 months after the fire. Housing was made available in Salem at no cost. When they wanted to return to Detroit, housing was once again made available at a very reasonable rate, and travel trailers were donated to those in need. Water was made available when the city didn't even have water. We did whatever it took to make it work. Despite our efforts to help, our family became a victim of negative social media. It was led by individuals uninformed about the facts surrounding the events that took place. I believe these false, negative social media attacks led to the arson attack at Mountain High Grocery. One individual threw a rock through the front door, while a second threw a Molotov cocktail. I tell you this story because I see the same thing happening in our community to those individuals elected by the voters of Detroit to hold an unpaid volunteer position within the city government. They are performing their duty as city councilors to review and adopt codes and rules that will apply to every property owner within the city limits. They do not deserve eggs thrown at their house, or being flipped off as you drive by, or being called out by name on a flyer that's hung on, in town. I believe those promoting these negative campaigns are making things worse, not better. Threatening a city councilor with the loss of their highly sought-after position is laughable. Most are counting the remaining time as every month goes by to get off. Most property owners have no idea how much time has been committed working on to help Detroit recover from the fires of 2020. I'm confident that they will do their very best to adopt a recreational vehicle code that most landowners within the city of Detroit can live with. There's one thing for sure, not everybody's going to be happy. As a long-serving planning commissioner, I state there has never been a plan to eliminate recreational vehicle use in the city limits. The city of Detroit has the most lenient RV codes of any city in the state of Oregon, more lenient than Marion County.
Dean, I'm sorry, that's your 3 minutes.
That's 3 minutes?
Yeah, sorry about that. Time flies when you're having fun, isn't it?
Thank you for your service.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Members of council, mayor, my name's Ken Woodward, 100 Osprey, Detroit. I'm for allowing one RV on single-family residential property with a nice cover in order to protect the RV. I fully support an RV code enforcer or a team that will inspect, protect our community. What concerns me is the multiple RVs on residential properties that may not have been inspected by anyone, not even the fire department. My concerns, if Marion County approved the septic system, was the septic approved for one or multiple bedrooms? Hasn't all electrical hookups been certified, or have some been bootlegged? If there's no septic system on the property, what will the requirements be? Has the property owner taken into consideration the safety of our local fire department when putting multiple RVs on small lots or close to structures? If 2 or more RVs are considered an RV park by Marion County standards, what changes will be required on residential single-family lots? Should the property owner with 2 or more RVs be required to pay commercial water rates? Detroit is paying a price for a fire that it didn't have any control over. In the past, our foresters' hands were tied from many lawsuits. This was a perfect storm. I trust Detroit has learned from this fire. Safety first. I'm confident that our elected officials are taking this opportunity to review all ordinances for liability and safety issues. I cite the ATV ordinance as a positive step the council has made. Great job, councilors. Our elected officials and city staff have been working tirelessly since September 2020, searching for much needed funding and grants. They have been meeting with Marion County, state, and FEMA officials who are all operating by the book. Maybe some of our elected officials are thinking the buddy system should be replaced by accountability. Detroit still needs a lot of help to rebuild. Being a divided community will not help as we apply for grants to rebuild or find investors to see the potential in this community as we do. The goal of ordinance reviews is to limit liabilities, keep our residents safe, and our first responders even safer. Will that make everybody happy? No. However, if such action will protect our citizens and our community, I'm all for it. Thank you for all that you're doing.
Thank you. Anyone else? Actually, the lady in the blue shirt in the back there, you had your hand up. You had your hand up there. Oh.
My name's Miriam Rasmussen, and my husband and I own 330 and 340 Detroit Road South. Did speak last time. There's just a few bullet points I'd like to mention, just listening tonight. First, there's a lot of survivors in this room that went through the fire, and we are included. We had a home, we had a 1,500 square foot shop, and we're doing our best to rebuild, and there's plenty of people there with us. It's not just permanent residents, although I feel for them deeply. Secondly, regarding the code, you guys know some of these things that are being said, they're already in the code. Appropriate hookups, appropriate setbacks, the correct water. So some of this just doesn't apply of what people are concerned about, because if we enforce it, it's fine. Two, I'd like to just mention to Councilor Page as the water commissioner, RVs don't use much water, and RVs bring their own water, and they take their water and their waste away. So for the next few years, that seems like that is a great supplement to our water issue. I mean, so I hear about this water usage. I mean, put a bunch of people in a 5,000 square foot house and you're going to use a whole lot more water than the people in the RV. You know, they're going to be down at Russ's, you know, eating dinner. So I just think that needs to be spoken to. Councilor Nielsen, I know you and I talked briefly about the fact that you've looked at other towns and that we have what you were saying, a more liberal RV code. We're really remote. You know, I mean, obviously it takes an hour and a half either way on dangerous roads to get here. And there is not enough housing and won't be for some time. I think that puts us way aside from a place like Cannon Beach or somewhere where you can go 5 miles down the road and find another place to stay. So I think we are very unique, and I think we have an opportunity to work out something that works for everybody. 3, I don't know if I can, you know, I heard McCray say we didn't have to change this code. And there was rumors going around that there was a county and a state mandate. Would any of you be willing to say that this is really, these people have the authority to make this decision and that it is not required by the county or state to do so? I don't, you know, I mean, either, I think.
Mayor Trett said you had 3 minutes to speak, and then if responses or questions
So there's no
were...
answer to that? That's right.
So can I? Sure, I'm happy to speak to. This is, you know, there are standards and requirements for RV parks, but what the city is speaking to with 3.53 in these changes is the city's decision on how they want to regulate RVs.
Yes. Yeah, it's the city's decision. Not 2 RVs is not an RV park in the city of Detroit. Correct?
Depends. Yeah, it depends.
It
depends.
It depends. And where is that information available of this depends?
It's codified in state statute. It's codified in state statute. So under ORS, if you have RV spaces that are leased out, 2 or more, that's an RV park.
Right. So you know, this group, this is not what we're talking about. And we're not talking about whatever the word is, that's the other word besides renting, what is it? Patronage or something or whatever. It's, this is not it. So let's please stick to the real issues. Real quick, enforcement. Well, enforcement, there's okay, look around. You want to be neighbors? I think there's a lot of incredible talent and volunteerism in neighbors here. Please consider doing the right thing. Okay.
My name's Brian Harper. We own a lot now at 130 Lake Crest. We had a house. We bought it in 2007. We raised our kids here in the summers. Son worked at Cane's as a dock boy. Daughter and son both worked at Mountain High Grocery. We don't have a house now. We have an RV. Anybody wants to come up and see us? We don't have extra rooms. We have an RV. I don't see what the complication is. We're not using a ton of water. We're not breaking any boundaries. We don't have ATVs running around. I think that's probably, honestly, if you look at it, it's probably mostly people that have garages. This is not the right time, guys. It's not the right place. And I really got to ask you guys, what is your motive here? Are we trying to increase property values for wealthy people that have homes? What are we trying to do? There's a lot of people who don't have a lot of money that like to come up here and like to recreate. They like to hang out with their family. And I got to ask you guys, who are you trying to increase values for? The people that rent their house out on Airbnb? Is it the millionaires that are building the 5,000 square foot, 2-bedroom houses? What are we trying to do? I would just ask that you guys really consider, who are you affecting and why now? If there's code enforcement, you've already heard that. Enforce the code. Enforce the people that are driving their side-by-sides, not their golf carts, their side-by-sides, down the streets at 30 miles an hour. This is not right. You guys are not right. I'm sorry, but this isn't right. We're being protectionists, and we're passing codes to take care of our own and to somehow benefit our own. But that's not right. This is a community. It's not just for each of you guys. It's for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Boland?
Tracy Boland, 130 Brighton Bush, previously 110 Lake Street. The very first council meeting that I came to in Detroit was 5 years ago, and it was on RVs. I sat in that room with a lot of people that I see here talking about RVs and how upset they were that they were going to be taken away, and I sided with them because this is what I was hearing them say. There was people standing in front of the council that sit before me saying that they were going to sue the city for taking away RVs. It slowly became a bunch of bullying again, to where the city council backed down and didn't take the city's best interest in hand. Since then, I've taken the last 5 years to know the ins and outs of Detroit, to learn the facts that have to go along with the cities, not just the citizens and what the citizens want. It's easy to say, I own RVs. I own 3 RVs. I've lived in them. I live one here and I live one there because of the fires took away my home. I'm not against RVs. However, I think that 3 and 4 RVs is excessive. And I've taken the time to do the research and put together information that has to do with the city. Everybody comes up here and talks about that things need to be enforced. Where's that money coming from? Where is the money coming to enforce that? We don't have it. The city of Detroit doesn't have the money to do that. People are wanting to propose no permits for 1 and 2 RVs, and then you can have a 3rd and a 4th for $50 a piece. $50 doesn't do anything. It barely covers the city staff. Another thing is property taxes. Everybody says that that's not a fight, but it is a fight. If you look at the property tax statements, which I provided to you guys in my letter, a bare lot that houses RVs brings in less than 10% of any other property tax statement. A new construction home located on Janus Court will glean the city $1,627.18. A manufactured home located on 2nd Street will glean $800.31. A higher value home established on Santiam Avenue will bring in $6,920.55. A bare lot will bring in $124.85. This includes the city fund, the Idana Fire Department, the Idana Fire Department local option.
Ms. Boland, that's your 3. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Hearing none, I will close. Oh, I'm sorry.
Good evening. Corey Baker, 220 Lake Crest. I've talked to all of you at one point or another. One of the things I have a little bit of a problem with that I didn't talk about last time, the only thing I talked about last time was telling you this isn't going to be the end if you voted in, because there's a lot of people. Not everybody can be here. I don't know how many people you have signed up that were for your new mandate that you would like to pass, or I guess you would call it mandate, it's your new ordinance. But we have 360 people on this one, and I'm not sure how many people you have that sent in letters against the RVs. There's 360, they're all verifiable. There's quite a few people for Detroit, it's a pretty small town, that have an interest in Detroit and RVing here. I keep hearing that because we've had RVs for 53 years up here, that we don't pay enough taxes. The one lot I own is $700,000. I think that's a chunk of taxes. Go buy a house down in the valley. When you start talking about business owners not wanting to invest here, I own 4. The way the city's been here, you think I'd want to invest here? It's not very user-friendly. I would like to see like the Beehive in Salem put in. I've thought about it. It's very attractive as far as there's a couple pieces of property I'd be interested. It's very attractive because they'll put in a free septic system. It's very attractive for quite a few reasons, but who am I going to get to work here? I mean, have you guys even thought about, you're saying that everybody has to have a house, and then everybody has to have a piece of land. Where are these people going to live? Who am I going to hire? Who would come up here? I mean, you get a cheap lot here at $200 grand. You get a house here, and it's expensive to build here. I'm a contractor. I happen to know that it's not cheap. And even if we try to save money, it's, you're talking $500 grand on the low side. Are they going to live in a $500,000 place and work at the grocery store, work at the burger flipper, or work, changing sheets in a hotel you don't have yet? I mean, down the road, maybe this is going to be a little bit more of a mute issue, but when we've already been violated by the fire, and we've already been violated by COVID, and now we're getting violated and having our rights taken away from the council, don't you think that we're not offense here, we're defense. We're trying to protect our rights. We bought the land with rights. So that has to do with the financial part of this, that I would like to be able to go forward in a good way. We don't even have, we've never rented our land out. You're taking away my rights because you're saying that maybe I rented out my land? Guess what? We don't buy a lakefront and rent it out. So you're taking away my rights because somebody else might have took away, somebody did something else. But do you have a right as a council to take away my rights because something someone else did? I don't think so. That's like take away my gun because somebody else shot somebody. It doesn't make any sense.
I'm sorry, that's your 3 minutes. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else?
My name's Steve Orr. I live at 95 Lake Court. I have nothing prepared. I wasn't going to come speak tonight. As I sit here and listen, as I sit here and listen, it seems awfully odd to me that all the people supporting this change, really, I don't think they have a problem with RVs. They have a problem with Rajneeshis. They have a problem with beer cans. They got a problem with trailer parks and loud music. That doesn't have anything to do with RVs. I think you guys are on the wrong track. I'm not sure if you guys have picked that up yet or not. But if you listen really close, 9 out of 10 of those people were having a problem with those things, not RVs. So you might want to look into that a little bit. I haven't seen any RV or any Rajneeshis cruising around in RVs throwing beer cans myself. So check that out. I lost my house in the fire. I was fortunate enough to purchase another home. I bought a lot. It's not adjoining, but it's one down from that, with the purpose of having RVs for my family. I have 4 children, 6 grandchildren. I cannot house them all in my house. So I spent the money to get it set up to where I could put RVs on there. The fact that you guys are wanting to change that just doesn't work for me, and I don't think it works for a lot of people. I don't know the motive. The one fellow came up and said, "What's the motive here?" Someone's got some motive here. We all know it. Don't know who, don't know why, but I think you guys need to think that through. There's a lot of good people in this town, a lot of good people that support it. I'm not trying to discount anyone. You hear a lot of talk about taxes and raising the taxes, and the one lady even said she has 5 lots. I think there's a house on one. If she's really concerned about taxes, why don't we build houses on all 5 of those lots? Just a thought. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Anyone else? If not, I will now close the public hearing and the record on LA 22-01, the building code, at 7:55 p.m. Final consideration of LA 22-01, the building code, will take place on Tuesday, September 12th, 2023, at our regular council meeting. At this time, councilors, do you have any questions of staff?
Mayor, I believe we have...
Councilor Tesdale.
We have city council action choices.
Before we do that, do we have questions
Right.
for McCray or Mr. Shipman?
Yeah, I have some questions. This could go to McCray or Mr. Shipley. I have read that people are questioning why we are updating our code. We already answered how we're paying for it with a grant. How often do cities normally update their code, or how often, or when is it recommended? Do either of you know that?
So, so I work for the COG, the Council of Governments, and we provide land use planning services to Detroit and several small membership communities where you all don't have the capacity to have a full-time planner. A community like the city of Salem, they have planning staff who are, their job is to be constantly updating their codes, right? So it's ongoing. For a community like Detroit, and several of our members that are small like this, we don't see code updates happen for decades often. That just the resource, the cost of a code update, and the availability and time just isn't available. So I don't know in our records the last full code audit and update that happened for the city of Detroit. We've had legislative amendments for the city over the past several years. You know, from the fire, we've had responses to the fire, emergency ordinances to allow transitional housing and speak to those kind of issues, and we had to deal with floodplain requirements. But before the fire, in 2019, there was the RV ordinance. Strictly, it was the RV ordinance that did not get passed. The last code update was in 2011 when RVs were permitted in the current situation that they're permitted. And then prior to that, 2009 was the last time. But those were specific sections of the code, whereas this code update that's before us now, even though the majority of the conversation has been centered around RVs, this was a full code audit that began in January of 2022 that was authorized by the City Council in December of 2021 for the COG to apply for funding from DLCD to do a full code audit, code review, and these updates. And over the course of that time, we had 9 meetings with the Planning Commission and joint work sessions with the council. The Planning Commission served as a technical advisory committee to review and discuss all of the entire code from the first page to 230. So it is a very comprehensive approach. There's a lot more work that, you know, there's lots of items, and as the one community member who first spoke about the planning efforts with Sarah Architects, who's doing the planning for your community, your commercial district, like there is a lot of opportunity and discussion ongoing that will continue. But a lot of the code work that we've done and review involves erosion control measures on properties, organizing the code better, getting parking standards that are more applicable to potential future commercial and industrial users. Like, there's a lot of other updates that happened in this review. But I understand why this community has come to talk about this one topic, and it's appropriate and good. So, does that help answer your question?
Other questions? Councilor Nielsen.
McCray, on my own property, which is 2 lots, we have an approved septic tank. We have an approved plan for a new cabin. but we're only allowed 2 bedrooms in that dwelling.
Mm-hmm.
So if we built the building, built a cabin, we had our 2 bedrooms, and then is it appropriate to allow an RV to be moved on our property, which would ultimately bring that to 3 bedrooms, which would put us out of compliance with the county's regulation regarding the use of our septic tank in Greenfield?
It's definitely not recommended to be out of compliance with your permits for your septic or any other part of, building permit requirements. I would not recommend being out of compliance.
Okay, so I extrapolate from that the fact that if we're going to have an RV on a residential property,
Mm-hmm.
that it needs to comply with all of the conditions that a single-family dwelling would have to comply with if it were built on that same property.
I think that's appropriate.
So that goes for landscape, that goes for parking, that
Mhm.
goes for, I think they call it green gardens. 400 square feet of landscape, I believe, is in the development code for a property with a single-family dwelling. And I think that's what we're talking about here mostly tonight, is RVs on residential properties, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I believe the conversation has been focused.
So we should have to comply with all of the setbacks,
Mm-hmm.
all of the other conditions, parking, driveways, electrical, sewer, whether it's an RV or a single-family dwelling.
Well, those 2 codes don't match. So like our residential zone has a 15-foot front yard setback for a structure.
That's from the front.
Yeah.
5 on the sides.
5 on the sides and the
15
rear.
in the front and 5 on the back.
Mm-hmm. Whereas what our code proposes, I'm sorry, just have to look, everybody, but there's been a lot, is 5 feet. 5 feet from front, side, and rear is what an RV, as the code is proposed right now, it would be 5 feet for the side, front, side, and rear.
So are you saying an RV only has a 5-foot setback on the front?
Yes.
Why is that different from a single-family dwelling?
Because that is what the Planning Commission and you all have proposed.
Well, I guess for me, it just makes sense if it's going to apply to one, it should apply to both. in
That
terms
they
of the
be
setback.
consistent. Okay, thank you.
Other questions from council? Councilor Luke.
Hi, McRae.
Hi.
So, the COG and Planning Department worked together, had a meeting on, public hearing on, or had a meeting, on,
April
February
18th.
27th, I believe it was.
Okay.
To review the RV codes and so forth. They heard testimonies and then the Planning Commission worked tirelessly. I've spoken with a couple of them in the last week to come up with anything that needed to be changed and updated. On April 18th, they proposed to keep the code the same as it was, my understanding, with the small change in the verbiage to allow RVs that are on residential lots to be pumped by a certified septic pumper so that they wouldn't overflow, create a hazardous, and so forth. But their recommendation to us was to keep the code the same. We decided in discussion in the next meeting to, which I agreed with, to take the verbiage out that 2 of the counselors had to approve a 3rd and 4th. Because it's not our job. Shouldn't be our job. From that, we've spent, at one point, not to pick on you.
It's okay.
You were concerned about the legal side of things.
Mm-hmm.
We've sought legal counsel. We found out that that's not applicable unless you're renting the space or patronage and so forth. My question amongst those is, why are we continuing this, down this path when, as a council, we've heard all this. We've seen the due process is to listen to the planning department, who we trust, our COG, our planner, city planner, our attorneys, and make sure that we're in compliance with everything. And I also want to state that the problems that I'm hearing from the people who would like to have it changed are 100% code enforcement. I agree. And I don't know how we get to code enforcement unless this retired gentleman back here may be willing to help out. Was a thought of mine. But
You have a question?
But at this point, my question is to you, McCray, and to you, sir, is do you see any issue with liability or safety of keeping the code the way it was, the way it has been, with the small changes of allowing, like your verbiage, the planning commission's verbiage, to allow them to be pumped?
Mm-hmm.
And we all agreed to remove us as counselors to have to sign off and put that, responsibility on us. Do you see any issue with that moving forward and keeping it at that way? Is there something that we are missing?
I don't have any legal basis or concern that you all need to change your RV code today, or the entire development code for that matter. The recommendations are to improve how the code can be implemented, to improve as development occurs, having erosion control measures in place, stormwater control measures in place, like the entire code, are recommendations but not requirements.
And with that, the LA 22-01, as it's written, the amendment, once again, I don't have it in front of me, so I can't, but is it true the only change was the verbiage to allow it to be the RVs to be pumped on site? They didn't have to go and dump at a dump site like it said before?
From the April 18th meeting was the recommendation that you could have it contained and pumped? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, was there
Councilman?
any changes recommended to the verbiage from the 2011?
Yes.
Other than that?
Yes. Oh, there were significant changes. The reduction in the number of RVs.
So that was the one that was the proposed reduction.
So our current code allows a property owner to have, so there's the transitional housing that a property owner, if you were impacted by the fire, that you can have an RV year-round and occupy it and live in it while you're rebuilding. That sunsets in September of 2025 and can be revisited at any point by the council. That was an emergency ordinance. Our current ordinance allows you to have 2 RVs on your property seasonally from April 1st to October 31st without a permit. Then our code permits you to have 2 additional RVs with a sign-off with no requirements, no permitting process, just 2 of you. You come in, you bring your application in to the city recorder and you apply, and she would have it put on council agenda for two people to sign. How clearly that process has been implemented, how consistently that process has been implemented since that code was adopted in 2011 is not clear, and we did lose all our public records from the fires, all land use applications, building permits, so a lot of the records that are in place for Detroit are what we have electronically on file and what Marion County Building Permit has. So what is proposed is a reduction that you can have. The current language before you is that you could have 1 RV year-round, and then you could have 1 additional RV seasonally from April 1st to October 31st. That's the text that.
It's been so long since we've
Yeah,
had
it's
that
okay.
and read it. I had
Yeah.
a phone call this week from Gina Aldrich
Yeah.
that said,
No. Mr. Mayor.
and so that's why my question, because Gina, who's on planning, was frustrated that he'd spent so much time, and she told me, Tim, the only language that changed from the original was to allow pump. And so it allowed a third and fourth with application. And so
The current
Further-
language that is available to everyone online and has been made available to the council states, one RV may be parked on the property and then one RV is permitted seasonally. That is the proposed language.
Further
Mr.
questions?
Mayor.
Counselor Nielsen.
Well, it just sounds like
No,
we need to
Counsel-
get clarity.
Excuse
on
me.
that.
Counselor Nielsen has the floor.
Okay, thank you.
McCray.
Yes.
There's been discussion tonight about either renting property for the use of an RV or putting property on an RV on an owned property and renting the RV, like a VRBO. I've read a fair amount about what other communities do and don't allow, and we've already heard tonight that Detroit has the most liberal conditions for RVs of any community in the state. But I'm bothered by the rental issue. Is it appropriate, and can people rent their RVs or their property place RVs on and still not be an RV park?
Well, I think with your attorney here, Mark Shipman, he can speak and did briefly to if you have more than 2 RVs and you're renting them, it could be argued that that is an RV park. Is that inaccurate?
Somewhat. It's Councilor Nielsen. It's the rental of the space. It's not the rental of the RV park. The way the statute's written, the statute talks about that there's 2 or more, plus it's the rental of the space, or there's some other benefit, some other financial benefit. And so your question is, what do we see in other jurisdictions? And I would just say what we see in other jurisdictions is we don't see them specifically allowing the rentals of, recreational vehicles. Recreational vehicles in those other jurisdictions are intended for private use or family use, but they're generally limited duration, and the limitation is quite a bit shorter than what's proposed in the ordinance from the Planning Commission. So, and generally that is typically anywhere between 20 to 30 or 31 days. So it's kind of a short, it's intended to be temporary. Your situation is really different. You have Ordinance 266, which created a separate category with respect to those that were affected by the fire. Now we've got a proposed ordinance update. It's just not for the RVs, it's for your entire code that addresses the entire code update, as McCray talked about, but also RVs. So I guess to answer your question, it's the statute is more nuanced, and I realize that everybody's situation is different in the community, and so I think what you see in other communities in Marion County, frankly, is you see something that's a lot more restrictive than what you're proposing here.
I think I'd like to see some language that restricts, if not eliminates, the rental of RVs in residential property.
Okay.
Further questions?
So one of the comments was, do we need to follow Oregon revised statutes? Do we?
You do, but the statutes are silent with respect to what you're doing here. So really, this is your call. This is your decision. What you're doing is you're making a policy decision for essentially for the community, and we're putting it into an ordinance, whatever that ordinance is going to look like, and that's what you're going to be debating and deliberating on the 12th. Is how do you want that to look like?
I'm going to ask, can a homeowner sue the city for allowing a permitted use within a residential zone.
Can this, okay, I'm
Can a
sorry.
citizen sue the city
Okay,
for the city allowing a non-permitted use within a residential zone?
I guess they could. I'm not sure it's going to go anywhere.
Okay. I do have Oregon Administrative Rule 918-650-0005. If that could be looked up, it gives the definition of a recreation park. And I want to know if recreation parks can be put in a residential zone.
They cannot.
Okay. If you guys could look that up and let us know your opinion on that.
Yeah, I'll tell you right away that they would not be allowed as a permitted use in any residential zone. I would say very confidently in at least in Marion County. Now, you may find some residential zones, that's maybe a multifamily zone, where it could be allowed as a conditional use, and it would be subject to conditional use standards and requirements with respect to siding placement. And that's, when, Councilor Tisdale, that's when you're talking about, needing to get, you're needing to get the state of Oregon involved and also Marion County with respect to essentially, building that out as a formal RV park.
Does the city need to follow our comprehensive plan? Okay, all right.
Yes.
So I think we need some time to look at that because our comprehensive plan is from 2009, and I want to make sure that what we pass for this amendment or this code revision ties in with our comprehensive plan.
Any other questions for staff? Councilor Page.
This is for Mr. Shipman. You were speaking in terms of RV park or multiple RVs in residential zones, and you mentioned the vehicle of a conditional use. Is it a conditional use or a variance? I know those terms, but don't know their correct usage.
So here's the difference between a conditional use and a variance. Conditional use permit, let's say if the council decided you wanted to allow for as the ordinance is proposed, and let's say you wanted to modify it slightly, and let's say you wanted to add, in some situations, one more RV on a lot, and you said that you're going to require that through a conditional use process. So folks would take a look at more enhanced standards with respect to the siding of that third unit. And let's say that third unit is approved, but they can't meet the 15-foot front yard setback. They can only meet 12. In that instance, they would apply to the city for a variance to the 15-foot front yard standard. So that's the difference between a conditional use permit and a variance. One, you're essentially asking for relief or exception to what the standard in the code is. The other one, you're essentially asking the jurisdiction for approval to be able to allow the use to go in.
So in the conditional use version of this, essentially what you're doing is you're polling the neighbors that live close to that to give agreement to an exception to maybe the count, or am I all fouled up here?
Conditional use would be a quasi-judicial decision that would essentially come before the council to review. I mean, similar to a variance has that same, but property owners are noticed. Typically, property owners within 250 feet, they have the ability to comment. There would be, as Mark referenced, additional standards that you're looking to meet, that what's the impact on the property? How is this use going to impact the property and adjacent properties?
Perfect. Thank you.
I have a question tied to that.
Councilor Tisdale.
Is that a type 3 application? Because I believe that if people are going to use a lot that has multiple RVs, that affects the value of the neighboring properties And when a type 3 application happens, don't they ask the neighbors what their thoughts are, or?
Neighbors receive, property owners within a certain distance, again, typically 250 feet, receive notice that is for hearing, and that they can comment. Similar to this hearing, this process in this hearing, that the public's been notified and has been able to submit comments. In this case, since this is a citywide ordinance and is applicable to potentially all property owners, every property owner received notice. But for specific properties, it's typically a distance.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Nielsen.
Sorry, I think this is my last question.
That's okay, you can ask as many as you want.
We've heard discussion tonight, especially from one gentleman whose property is within the city limits and I think is 3 acres. Would it be appropriate to think about some language that we could evaluate that might use what we just talked about in terms of a conditional use permit on properties that are obviously more appropriate for multiple RVs that could have separate electrical, water hookups, sewage connections, and all of that?
I think it would be appropriate. I think the question is the synthesis between what Mark has shared with us on recreational parks, right? So are you all wanting to have standards that would just apply for seasonal RVs and be something a little bit narrower, or are you thinking of if someone was going to apply for this, would the state RV standards, the standards that you have to get a license through Marion County to have an RV park, is that more what you're considering? Can you speak to that, Councilor Nelson? What is your, you don't know? Yeah.
I'd just like to think about that
more.
Obviously, I don't think we're going to make any decisions tonight.
No.
And you guys are going to have the opportunity with the others of your staff to develop some language, and I just think that that's something that we might consider.
Okay.
So Councilor Nielsen, if you'd like, McCray and I could come back to you with some suggestions or some options, and with that scenario, like just using that hypothetical, for example, with the 3 acres, and if the current zoning is RS, there would be other options.
Well, for me, I have to relate to my own property ownership, and I've got 2 50 by 100 lots. Mm-hmm. It's ridiculous to think about putting, more than one dwelling and one RV on that space with a drain field that can't be parked on. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, a 3-acre piece is quite different from that, and I just think that might be a way to soften some of the heat on this issue.
Okay. Can I ask, Mayor, is the council wanting us to look at the language about one permanent RV and one seasonal RV, or is that?
What I heard from the community was no one even mentioned that no one gave us positive or negatives about the 1 year round. Mm-hmm. They cared about the amount. And so I would say that if we could revert back to the previous code language or the existing code language with the dates for the first.
From 2009?
The dates for the first RV, that seasonal date range, mm-hmm. do that, because no one seemed to care about the year round. Mm-hmm. And I think then that would probably safeguard the city if we had issues with someone driving in their RV and just plopping down on a vacant lot that maybe there's an absent landowner and staying, and then the city would have a difficult time with that.
Okay.
Also with the language that Denny was talking about with house setbacks, if people are telling us that they're not going to build, they can't afford to build, not interested, whatever, I think it'd be appropriate to have a setbacks similar to a house. We also haven't talked about, and I don't know if people are paying attention to, that we can't have 100% gravel lots according to the code now, or the proposed code, and we have 100% lots. We need to make sure that in our code they know that 20% of that is supposed to be for yard, and the yard does not include the drain field. Because this ties in together with the fact that people are asking us why now. No one's getting kicked out. We got an ordinance 266 for fire victims, workers, but we didn't have a problem with RVs on our street because we had full-grown trees there and we had houses. So you couldn't put 2 RVs in there. I've got a photo where I've got a stubby little RV next to me on my neighboring property, and that was it. And then there were 2 more down the road that we never saw. They pulled in the beginning of the season and they pulled out at the end. No one ever saw them. But right now we've got guests pulling in, bringing their home on wheels, parking it and pulling out. And it's the peace and safety of the neighborhood has completely changed. So when we are asked, why is this happening right now? It's because we can park on 100% of our lots other than the drain field.
Okay, do we have other questions? Other questions from council?
No, but I'd like to say there are victims and we need to listen to them, and they're too nervous to talk, and that's the truth.
Okay. Moving. No other questions for council. Moving along, resolutions. Councilor Luke.
You had asked McCray, and I really enjoyed really appreciated the verbiage change to allow 1 year round, because there's a lot of people that are going to still rebuild. The fact is the cost of materials is 3 to 4 times that it was in the fire. When the fire came, our insurance said they gave us replacement cost at time of the fire. Nobody got their insurance for 3 or 4 months. It tripled. So I personally, had to deal with that. So I think it's important that we can have 1 RV on year round for the people that need to rebuild and don't have to tow it down, up and back. I mean, I was working on my place all winter, so I left an RV here. And I had to have a place to stay. There's no motels and everything. So I think that's still very important for at least the next few years.
Yeah.
That is
Council,
next few years.
this is for questions.
We have that already for 2025.
Okay, this is for council. This is for questions from council. Any further questions of staff? Do I have a motion?
Well, I don't know if I'm going to word this right, but one of our city council actions is I move to continue the request to a time certain, which I'm not sure how long that would take for you guys to come back.
September 12th.
Okay, September 12th, or indefinitely, stating at what point the city council would consider or we don't need to reopen the hearing because we've had so many hearings. So this council action doesn't totally fit what we want to do. We wanted you guys to come back September 12th.
To deliberate.
With new verbiage, with what we were talking
I have a motion, Councilor Tesdale, to request, to continue the request to September 12th, 2023, for the council to consider LA 22-01 for adoption or modification or denial. Okay, Councilor Nielsen. Now, Councilor Nielsen seconds. Discussion. Recorder, call the roll.
Councilor Shepard?
Aye.
Councilor Page?
Aye.
Councilor Luke?
Aye.
Councilor Tesdale?
Aye.
Councilor Smith?
Aye.
Councilor Nielsen?
Aye.
Mayor Trett?
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving along, resolutions, orders, and administrative action. Item A, septic bid, or the septic bid for the city park. Councilor Luke.
Thank you, Mayor Trett. I have a bid that everyone should have a copy.
Oh, yeah.
to have Septec start a maintenance schedule on the city park, and the filters and everything are plugged at this time and have been. They've inspected them a couple months ago, and I would encourage to accept this.
Discussion? Councilor Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to see some other bids. I don't know if this is good, bad, right? I think we need other bids to compare to see if this is a competitive bid.
It's such a small amount, and it needs to be done, and it's wasting time, I feel, to go any further, and our system could cost us some major costly repairs if we continue to postpone this, and it's well within to actually just take care of it. It's not a big, huge expense.
Yeah, but this is
And
an
we're also
ongoing-
required by law.
This is an ongoing bill, and AB Septic's up all the time too. When are they gonna turn this? They're out of all.
AB Septic and Septec are sister parent companies.
There's gonna be somebody else. I can't look at this and just write a blank check without saying anything's competitive or not.
Other discussion? Other questions?
Well, but we're just getting started.
Councilor Luke, can you tell me what, I don't see a number here, and I may just be missing. Oh, thank you. Okay. I knew I thought so far. Other discussion? So do I have a formal motion?
I move to accept the Septec bid.
Have a motion, Councilor Luke, to accept the Septec, that's a tongue twister, the Septec bid. Second, Councilor Shepherd. Discussion?
Well,
Councilor Page.
in reading this, there's some things that I have to admit I have some concern about here. It says this estimate, this is billed for services rendered more of a time and materials basis. As the system receives regular attention, blah, blah, blah. The estimate does not include labor and/or materials for repair or replacement of deteriorated, malfunctioning, or failed parts of equipment. This will be done on an as-need basis in time with parts billed at cost plus 25. It also does not include tanks, pumping, or drain field mowing. These activities are typically done by others. With respect to tank pumping, is our preference to Septec to have jurisdiction over the contractor in order to assure quality of service, etc. So they're going to hook us up with who's going to pump the tank as well. I would have liked to at least get one other company to give us a look through and see what their verbiage is and how they approach this. I mean, it just seems reasonable. Do I believe that? And there's also a list of various things that they are saying need to be done here. Semi-annual comprehensive maintenance of all system components, cleaning out of pumps, pump screens, on and on and on. And so I would just at least like to get, if this system is this technical that it needs, obviously it needs to be maintained. I'm not saying that we should be seriously looking at maintaining this thing differently than it has been, but for the long haul, I'd sure like to have one other company at least throw at us, gee, this is what it needs, so we have something to compare it to.
Councilor Nielsen. Have a motion, Councilor Nielsen, to table the motion to accept the Septec bid pending another bid from another company.
Can we get a time frame kind of on that though? Because I'd
Well,
like,
I was good. Councilor Luke, could we get one in the next 2 weeks?
No. Seriously, yes. I've called 3 other companies and I can't even get them to return my call.
Okay. So I have a motion to table this till...
First, we have a motion to
No,
accept it, right?
Well, the motion is tabled, so that we have, if we table it, then we can't vote to accept it because it's on the table until he gives us a date for how long.
Was there a second?
Yeah, but that's the motion to table would supersede those two motions. That motion and the second. Ideas?
Maybe just table it, and if we make one call and they don't get back, then we go at their next council session and make the decision?
When is
or-
our next council meeting?
26th.
Of this month?
Yeah, it's 2 weeks from today.
Table it till the 26th. Let's make some phone calls. If nobody wants to show up, or give us
I'll
another
follow
bid.
up.
Okay,
Then,
thank you. So I have a
then
mo-
we at least move on it before the month is out.
So I have a motion to table until the August 26th meeting. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Second, Counselor Page. Discussion. Recorder, call the roll.
Counselor Shepard.
Aye.
Counselor Page.
Aye.
Counselor Luke.
Aye.
Counselor Tesdale. Counselor Smith.
Aye.
Counselor Nielsen.
Aye.
Mayor Trett.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. The septic bid for City Park will be tabled until August 26th. Item B, presentation of the Detroit Marinas Excavation and Resiliency Project and adoption of Resolution 655. Larry Rupp. Larry, thank you for hanging in there with us.
Good evening, Council. On to a huge shift of gears over to the Marina Excavation Project. My name is Larry Rupp with Marion County Community Services Department.
I'm Josh Elliott. I'm an engineer with Mall Foster and Longy, a consultant for Marion County.
Welcome.
We're here today to discuss the Detroit Marinas Excavation Project. Phase 1 for concept planning is ending, and we're beginning to shift into Phase 2 for engineering and permitting. Today, we're going to summarize our work for concept planning, and at the end, Council will have an opportunity to pass a resolution to recommend a concept plan to the Marion County Board of Commissioners to adopt for engineering and permitting.
Okay, I'll give a little overview of the project. So excavation of sediment from the two marinas, so Detroit Lake Marina and Cairns Marina, approximately 162,000 cubic yards between the two of them. And so we were retained by Marion County to evaluate or come up with 3 alternatives to place this material elsewhere in the water body, and we did so. And the scope of this project at this point is limited to moving the material and stabilizing it in place. We did evaluate potential amenities and recreational features as part of what could be done out there, but these will be in a separate phase down the road. And there is a lot of detail available in packets in the back of the room. If you're interested.
Yeah, I would definitely encourage anybody who's interested in learning more about the project to grab some packets back there or visit the Detroit Marinas website or reach out to Marion County. We're happy to provide you with lots of information. To quickly summarize Phase 1, we started with a review of existing data to ensure that we align with existing local plans, and we did expectation setting with the city and key stakeholders such as the marina owners. Then we met with our regulatory agencies to gather their initial feedback and introduce them to the project. After our stakeholders were all aligned and our 3 alternatives started to come together, we went out during the fishing derby to have an in-person open house and had an online open house where we collected public feedback.
All right, so after the public feedback was received and the stakeholder input received as well, we prepared cost estimates for the 3 alternatives, developed a framework to evaluate them based on a number of criteria, and assign scores. So those criteria were recreational opportunity, habitat potential, ease of construction, regulatory and permitting requirements, and public feedback. So all of the alternatives were financially viable. Alternative 2 was ranked with the highest benefit overall, as well as the highest benefit per unit cost, and it was far and away the most preferred by the public, both locally and farther abroad, because we did have comments by location, their zip code. And so we, as the engineer, would recommend selecting alternative 2.
So today, our phase 1 concept planning comes down to the public outreach. Noted that alternative 2 would be the preferred alternative. And also our engineer is here recommending from our cost benefit analysis that alternative 2 would maximize potential recreational and likely economic benefits, provide additional upland and shoreline habitat, and it was vetted with stakeholders and regulatory authorities and expected to be permittable.
May I pause you for a moment? There appears to be a secondary meeting going on outside. I believe the people in the back of the room are having to listen to a bunch of that. Can we get some order into this building? Thank you.
It's important
Thank
for us,
you.
It's important for us to reiterate that the current scope of this project is limited to the sediment removal and placement and stabilization and the addition of any site improvements that we saw in these renderings, such as these recreational amenities and parking, are to be determined in a future process. Right now, what we're deciding with this resolution is to move forward into engineering, to excavate, and place the dirt. And if City Council is in consensus with recommending moving the alternative 2 concept, which is the peninsula extending out from Osprey Point, then the City of Detroit tonight will have an opportunity to pass a resolution for formally recommending this alternative to the Marion County Board of Commissioners.
Okay. Questions? I want to start with one from myself. By putting that dirt out there, my understanding from a conversation with you is that that would not be developed and that that could be developed further down the road, but then that plan would include additional parking in the city kind of thing?
It would be a different evaluation. I think what it really comes down to is that is like ownership and maintenance. Since there hasn't been an agreement on who would own and maintain those amenities, there hasn't really been a full feasibility study into what the full scope of those amenities would be. And so right now, we just want to make sure that this process keeps moving so that way we can excavate the marinas, which we're anticipating for October 2024, and then move the dirt and stabilize it, and then worry about those amenities or parking in a separate process.
Thank you. Councilor Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. First, thank you for taking us out there today and letting us see kind of the project from looking out there on the way in. That was good to see. My only question is, I know that we have the funds, or you guys have secured the funds for phase 1. Where do we see phase 2 and phase 3? Where's the funds maybe coming in from, or?
So far the project is fully funded. We have a $3 million ARPA allocation that was given to Marion County. We have a 2023 congressionally directed spending request, which is a grant for $2 million. We have $60,000 that the state is kicking in, and then our program is kicking in $50,000. So in total, that's $5,110,000. Alternative 2, it's coming in at about $5.7 million, which is slightly above, but that includes a 25% contingency that we think we can meet in there. That's within our tolerance.
Okay, and that's obviously pending, starting next year. If it's going to be more expensive, that's where the contingency comes in too, obviously. Okay. I wasn't aware that all the funds were secure. I thought you guys just had phase 1 funded, so thank you.
Phase 1 is all under contract, but the funds for the whole project have been fundraised.
Great, thank you.
Councilor Shepard.
Yeah, is there any chance of going a little bigger on this as far as you say you want to, it looks like we're going to have a marina season from May 1st to October 1st. Is there a chance of digging down a little deeper and maybe creating some wildlife islands, and maybe we could have a season from April 1st to the end of October. That would be 7 months. That would be huge for the canyon and the local economy.
Financially, at this point, we have developed these concepts for what we can afford with the money we have. And as far as technically, maybe I'll let Josh speak to that a little.
Yeah, I think Detroit Lake Marina may be constrained by bedrock much deeper than that. And so we've been keeping them at a relatively similar elevation.
Was there a chance to get lottery money for economic improvement? The marinas are a big part of our economic infrastructure, and it just seems like maybe we ought to look at that a little harder.
Right now, $50,000 of lottery revenue are being directed toward this program. Our program receives about 2.1 to fund the entire county, and a lot of that has to do with funds getting transferred to the planning department, as well as long ongoing projects. And so, in a sense, economic development dollars themselves and lottery dollars themselves can be used to pay for this project, and $50,000 of them are, but we would need to fundraise other funds for it.
Do you think the Audubon Society would be interested in getting involved if we created more wildlife islands for waterfowl and so forth?
If the city is interested in expanding the scope of this project in a future phase, we're always interested in finding ways to support our constituents. Right now, however, we're only looking at this scope of work because our first and foremost objective is to excavate the marinas to 1520.
Good, thank you.
And that's what we owe our federal funders.
Other questions? Councilor Page.
I would, unless there's other questions, I mean, from my perspective, I've looked at this thing. I have to admit, I took a kind of a hard line on this thing, but in the light of where it seems to be shed today, for me, and looking into this, in spite of the fact I will stand pat with the fact, and you have to listen to me again, that the Corps of Engineers is squeezing down our water up here. I would dearly love to see some money going to lobbying against how this water is being managed up here, that is a canyon-wide issue, and I'm going to continue my pursuit of that. However, because you guys have put this together and it is something that can be brought to the table in a short period of time, and I don't believe that it is going to impact the city in terms of now knowing how the scope of this project goes. I would be in favor of adopting resolution number 655.
Have a
and
motion.
Get those marinas excavated.
Have a motion, Councilor Page, to adopt Resolution 655. Second?
Second.
Second, Councilor Smith. Beat you by a second. Any further discussion? Recorder, call the roll.
Counselor Shepard?
Aye.
Counselor Page?
Aye.
Counselor Luke?
Aye.
Counselor Tisdale?
Aye.
Counselor Nielsen?
Aye.
Counselor Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Trett?
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Moving along, item C, water rate increase and adoption of Resolution 651. Yeah, thanks for sticking around. And I don't see
Matt Del Moro is not available to speak on this tonight. If council finds it necessary to move this ahead to another meeting, I'm more than happy to comply with that. The current numbers on this rate study, we have worked backwards, forwards, and every which way. Some discussion with the city recorder and Mr. Del Moro, myself, We took some input in the last meeting from two of the 1.5-inch line users in town. They use a lot of water. And what we did is we reworked some numbers to try and, I will admit, we're taking a little bit of a gamble here in bringing the rates in at these numbers, but I feel confident that we've crunched numbers very hard, and that in the event these numbers don't work out just exactly, we have some fallback measures, and worst case scenario, we may have to come back and knock on the doors. This current rate schedule that I had Lindsay print off for us came in from Matt. So where we would end up on this is we end up at $82 a month for residential water rates. That gives, that also, we bumped the gallonage usage up to 7,000 for residential customers. Then the consumption rate above per 1,000 gallons above that usage is $4. Zero user allowance, 250 gallons, and the zero user is $60 a month still. On the commercial side, we raised the gallonage back to 4,000. Commercial fixed rate for a 3/4-inch line goes to $120 a month. The commercial fixed rate for a 1-inch line is $160 a month, and the commercial fixed rate for an 1.5-inch line would be $330 a month. $10 is the consumptive rate above their gallonage usage. That's as tight as we can cut it and stay in the game. If we miss it and we can't make up for it, we're going to have to come back and knock on the door. But there's been a lot of work put into this rate package, and I believe we can make it happen and keep the rates at that level for some time to come. So that being said, unless there is concern with council about having another work session for clarity on this, or you want to bring Matt Del Moro in to testify, I would make a motion that we approve Resolution 651 on those numbers. There you go.
Have a motion, Councilor Page, to approve Resolution 651, second Councilor Nielsen. Discussion? Recorder, call the roll.
Counselor Shepherd?
Well, I think we ought to have another work session on this, and I just think it's too sharp of an increase too soon. Next year we're going to know a lot more. We're going to have more customers. I think we ought to look at this. We ought to have a work session. I just think we ought to look at it a little harder.
So how do you vote?
Then vote no on this one.
Can I say something real quick?
Aren't we still in discussion?
Oh, no, we haven't.
No.
Well, I did call for discussion, and then maybe I went too fast. Is there further discussion?
I don't-
Councilor Luke, I'm sorry. We'll cancel that.
This resolution
But
is not
we're under
with these.
discussion.
What's that?
Councilor Luke?
Mayor Chet, we talked last week, or 2 weeks ago after the meeting, about the possibility of using some of the funds, talking to Chris Epley and so forth, to subsidize what we needed
Well, I don't know.
to meet all our criteria and so forth for the next 6 or 8 months or so, to try and help the marinas and everything to get into next fiscal year and the budgeting and so forth. Were you able to talk to him about that, or
I
look
talked
into
to
that?
I talked to Matt. Did Councilor Page, did you and Matt talk about that?
Well, there's been discussion about various different uses of dollars, and anytime, and yes, the 651, if I was applying this to use on 651, not what this says. And so if we can't do that, then we can back up. But yeah, to answer that question, using reserve type funds, held to in separate accounts that may draw interest to, you know, reach shortfalls if that so comes about. That's stepping on tedious ground in terms of that being any type of policy to solve financial means. But that discussion also goes to a different level, because with this, we don't have enough information to really know how all these numbers will apply. And Matt was, Mr. Del Moro from HBH, our engineering firm, who has created most of this discussionary material, was also quite optimistic that they had been extremely harsh in what they presented, and that's their job. They give us the worst case scenario and where they want to see us make the numbers they want us to be at. If we agreed to go with what their original assessment on this, we would probably be paying $95 a month residentially and a whole lot more commercially. But I believe after some long-term discussion, we believe we can get there on the numbers that we've shrunk this down to. And they're in agreement that 8 months will tell the story, and we aren't going to miss it by very much if we miss it. So that's the conversation that's been had. And if council wants to bring Matt Del Moro back in for that, there you go.
Is there another underlying reason why the rates are going up so sharp that we haven't really been talking about? Is there something else going on with the water plant?
There is nothing going on with the water plant. I'd be happy to give a complete update about where we stand on the water plant, the pump station, and everything. This rate increase has zero relationship to the new water plant, to the Brighton Bush pump station being rebuilt, or anything related to our new water plant. This is a result of no rate increases since 2017 or 2019. We put 2 new piping systems in the city. We put brand new meters in throughout the city, and we took out a loan to pay for that. When you do no rate increases and you put that much new pipe in the ground up here, you start finding yourself to be running at deficits. And on top of that, we are supposed to be putting away reserve money every year so we stay in compliance with the people that loan us money to do these water repairs. And if we aren't in compliance, and we have a main line blowout in town that comes in at a $500,000 or $700,000 bill, and we don't have a company or a lending source, Business Oregon, that says, go ahead, get your project done, we'll loan you the money, then we're in trouble. And part of what's going on with this rate increase is to begin to put that loan reserve, which is, since the wildfire, we have been in suspended animation on that. They said, hey, you guys are a wildfire community, don't worry about paying the reserve. So there were no rate increases, no reserve payments. It's time to get in compliance, and we're not even hitting the numbers that was recommended by HBH at these rates, but we're going to take the best shot and not try and break the back of everybody in town, and hopefully we get there. That's been my approach on this. And we've worked this thing multiple times, but we've got to get in compliance. I don't like it either. I'm going to pay the piper on my water bill just like everybody else.
Have a call for the question. All those in favor of putting the question, which means we vote on this tonight, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, motion passes 6-1. We now call for a vote on the water rate increase, passage of resolution 651.
To reflect
Further discussion.
these numbers, not these numbers. So 651's numbers, this was the old discussion, and these came in over the facts, and Matt I might be able to get him on the phone. These numbers came in from Matt and could not be printed in this version. So
We can call them if you need to call them. But
Yeah,
what
we have-
is, it says see below, what number are you going with? It says, see below. What's the fixed rate?
82.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Okay, so, voting on the adoption, or voting on Resolution 651. Recorder, call the roll.
Counselor Shepard. Counselor Page.
Aye.
Counselor Luke.
Aye.
Counselor Tesdale.
Aye.
Counselor Smith.
Aye.
Counselor Nielsen.
Aye.
Mayor Trett.
Aye. Motion passes 6-1. Councilor Shepard voting nay. Thank you. Moving on to item 10, the consent calendar. We'll be voting on approving the minutes of the Detroit City Council work session of July 11th, 2023, the regular session public hearing July 11th, 2023, and the regular session of July 25, 2023, and to approve paying the bills. Questions on the consent calendar?
Move to approve the consent calendar.
Have a motion to approve the consent calendar. Second?
Second.
Second, Councilor Luke. Recorder, call the roll.
Counselor Shepard. Counselor Page.
Aye.
Counselor Luke.
Aye.
Counselor Tesdale.
Aye.
Counselor Smith.
Aye.
Counselor Nielsen.
Aye.
Mayor Trett.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Staff reports, HBH Engineering. Anything else? Probably not. City Recorder.
Just to follow up to the last meeting, we did get the email and the insurance payment on the Brighton Bush pump station that everybody was a little apprehensive, but we did get it.
Great, thank you. Planning, looks like McCrae kind of snuck out already. Marion County Sheriff, anything?
Just real quick, I don't want to go home. The concerns, we've had some people driving their side-by-sides, possibly golf carts up to Brighton Bush, outside the city limits. So if you want to go up there and recreate up in the hills, you can trailer up where you can run to 46th Road. So that's one of the concerns we've had. We've had a couple people with no helmets, but unfortunately we're going over the calls and we're able to address that at the time. Other than that, we've just been busy. So that's all I have to report.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
U.S. Forest Service, Michelle King is not here. Identity Detroit Fire District, looks like he had to go too. North Sandium Sewer Authority.
I'll postpone my report until our next session. I think we've
Thank you.
enough discussion this evening.
STR Committee, Nancy Powell is not here. Thank you. City Clerk, Lindsay? Thank you. Unfinished business, just things we keep on the calendar. Ordinance 251 regarding parking, we'll be looking at that. And then also, we're still working on City Hall rental fees for renting agencies or whoever wants to rent this facility or the small conference room. Council reports. Councilor Shepard.
by the end of August. When it's done, it'll be a great safety corridor for families to safely walk from East Detroit downtown to the parks, and hopefully might even encourage more pedestrian traffic and might help alleviate some of the parking issues downtown. We're going to install a street light in the near future on the Milgard cul-de-sac. That'll be $4,300. I would like to do some dust abatement in town, but going to need funding for that. I would like to crack seal Detroit Avenue from about Mountain High down to San Am, but again, that's going to take funding. And last month, Michelle Connor and I went around town pointing out and looking for hazard trees that were on lots. Some of these trees are pretty tall, and if they fall, they're going to hit somebody else's property and possibly cause damage. So we've been working on that. And that's about it.
Thank you. Councilor Smith.
Councilor Shumper, I know one of the residents mentioned street signs. Do you know where we're at with that?
Yeah, we're still working on that. I ordered some and they haven't showed up yet.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Page.
I'm going to make this brief. Construction has resumed at the water plant. That building is going to be underway, if it isn't already. The award on the Brighton Bush pump station has gone out to the contractor. They're mobilizing to get ready to get working on that. We did receive confirmation related to the insurance company payout on that, which we were a little bit nervous about. So we know that's covered. We are awaiting some final confirmation on FEMA funding, but we are moving ahead on the water plant construction. That's back in swing. Hopefully we'll get that building portion of that done before the snow flies, and I think that'll probably happen. But we're on target. It's moving.
Thank you. Councilor Luke.
Thank you, Mayor Chet. The bathroom doors are repaired and came in exactly in budget. I wanted to, I had a resident last meeting request know if they could get the reports such as the building commissioner before me used to give with permits and so forth. And so I did have the gals in the office help me and prepare the last 5 months. So I can either read those if you people want to hear them, but I wanted to say that none of that pertains to any of my responsibilities or duties, and so that's why I haven't been wasting time with it. In our charter, the powers and duties of building commissioner shall be as follows: to assist the city council and city recorder with regard to improvements and repairs of the buildings owned by the city of Detroit. B, to investigate concerns pertaining to repair and improvements activities and follow up on the aforementioned repairs and improvements, and to report such to the city recorder, city council as arises. C, to act as a liaison as needed or requested with independent service providers who may be contacted with from time to time to perform such projects and tasks as may be necessary for building maintenance and improvements. D, to periodically inspect city-owned buildings as needed or as requested, to recommend any improvements and or repairs as the building commissioner deems necessary or appropriate. E, to ascertain any safety and or security needs with your jurisdiction and to prioritize and recommend funding for the such needs with the confines of the fund budget. F, to anticipate long-term needs for the building improvements and to make the city council aware of these needs. G, building commissioner or representative to sign off or approve building permits. In an emergency building maintenance, section 4, if in the opinion of the building commissioner, a condition should arise requiring immediate attention which could not reasonably have been anticipated and provided against, and the condition is of such a nature that the city is likely to be subjected to liability by reasons of such condition before the next regular meeting of the City Council. Building Commissioner may, in their discretion, to avoid the city being subjected to any liability, take steps to correct the problem. Building Commissioner may cause repairs to be done to correct dangerous conditions as the circumstances of the case necessitates. The Building Commissioner is hereby authorized to obligate the city to pay expenses incurred therein. When such corrective action is taken, the Building Commissioner shall report to the matter to the City Recorder at the first available opportunity and address the action at the next city meeting of the City Council. So that's my responsibilities. I have multiple residents have called me and asked me about building codes and so on and so forth. The Building Commissioner prior to me didn't do any of these things. They reported on building permits and so forth. I have them here for the last 5 months and everything else if anybody wants to read them, but I will not be providing those in the future. All they have to do is call the office and ask. Thank you.
Councilor Tesdale.
The park. So the Sierra Design Group Architecture, I know that I've heard people say, why isn't the council addressing the downtown? And this is tied to the park. We had, Danny and I meet with the team every other Tuesday to help with the design codes and the meetings for people to help choose what they want their downtown to look like. So I just wanted to say that that is happening. It's just people leave a bit early from the meetings and don't know that we talk about it. And they are working to include the park. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. As far as safety goes, everybody's seen the lake levels. I've noticed today when we're out at Osprey Point, the canal that runs through there is very, very low. I would recommend staying away from that area. Also, as far as ordinance officers go, right now we're working with the COG and Marion County to develop duties that they will be providing and working on that going forward. So that is something that is in the works to hopefully alleviate some of these issues as well. So more to follow on that. I do have talked to a couple people that are interested in that. So it's just a matter of figuring out their duties, and I have no idea what a position like that would pay or how often they do it, especially come winter, come summer type thing. So it's going to be a learning curve. So, but we are working on it. So thank you.
Councilor Nielsen.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one quick follow-up to our discussion regarding the dual propane tanks for our generator, as well as the road fencing and the emergency broadcast tower. I met with Chief Patterson today, found out that they have their plans secured, ready to execute about the 1st of September. They're going to need a road down into the back of our property. Lindsay and I worked this afternoon to try and figure out who owned the property, as well as help from Elizabeth Smith, so that we can make contact to use that road that's been blocked until we can afford and have the time through Owen Construction to create our own roadway back there. It's important because the money from FEMA that is supplying the fencing and the tower has to be spent before December. And I don't think there's any way we can put a road back there. And to elaborate on the fence a little bit, which is new, they're going to put in a 30 by 65 foot chain link fence surrounding our generator as well as the tower, just to keep it from becoming an attractive nuisance. And maybe it won't keep it from becoming one, but hopefully to contain those who might want to violate the property. That's all I have.
Thank you. Mayor's report. Just really only one thing to report on tonight. I was asked by League of Oregon City, or I think it was League of Oregon Cities anyway, Secretary Tom Vilsack, who is the Secretary of the U.S. Department of Agriculture, was in Portland. They had a panel of 16 people come in and talk about primarily fire resiliency from both Oregon and Washington. I think Detroit should be honored. We were the only city that was invited to attend. to talk about what had happened here and what we're working on. I did have an opportunity to thank the secretary, and I knew it was big when I walked in and all of a sudden realized there was Secret Service everywhere. The most uniformed people I've ever met. But we thanked him for the for USDA's $1 million grant to get water back in the city back in 2020. Did mention that we had another grant application pending. So I was able to present as part of the panel. He mentioned he was a small town mayor of a city of 8,000. I said he must be a metropolis almost. And we had about a 5-minute conversation afterwards regarding the grant application that we have in and the things that we've done. So I hope we represented Detroit well and go from there. Thank you for that. Other business. Upcoming meetings, City Council regular session August 22nd, 2023 at the Detroit City Hall at 6:30. And the next session, September 12th, 2023 at the Detroit City Hall again at 6:30. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Councilor Luke moves to adjourn. Second?
Second.
Second, Councilor Tesdale. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Abstentions? We are adjourned at 9:17. Thank you, everyone.